You are listening to Hillary Topper on Air, the small business podcast to help you grow both personally and professionally. And now, here's your host, Hillary Topper.
If you're an athlete, you know the importance of hydration. Being properly hydrated combats cramps, headaches, muscle fatigue, lightheadedness, and more. So what do you do to ensure that you're staying hydrated in order to perform your best? I'm Hillary Topper, and this is Hillary Topper on Air. Today, I have the great pleasure of speaking with David Balaga, who is the president and CEO of the Wellness Brands, Inc. and maker of The Right Stuff, an electrolyte liquid concentrate drink additive. Before I introduce David to the show, I just have to tell you one thing. Full disclosure. So David gave me a couple of samples to try out. And I tried them out and I could not believe the difference that it made. I have tried almost every type of hydration out there, probably every hydration out there. And this really was a game changer. So I went and I bought 6 more boxes from him. So anyway, I just want to say that before we even start the interview, because I want to share with you that I'm really excited about The Right Stuff. And I know you will be too, after you hear from David today. So David, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So can you give our listeners a little background on yourself and also the wellness brand?
Sure. So the quick background on me is I have a career pretty much in consumer products, mostly in marketing and sales and general management. Worked for a range of companies, including everything from Hallmark cards and Pepsi and companies that became part of GSK and Pfizer and things like that. Including some nutrition products, some over-the-counter products, etc. This company, Wellness Brands, was started 10 years ago. It was started based on a technology that we licensed from NASA that became The Right Stuff. And just to give you the quick background, the reason it was developed is because the astronauts suffer severe dehydration when they come back into the gravity of Earth. So as NASA likes to do, they spent over a decade doing dozens of clinical studies to refine and optimize the formula. The formula that became The Right Stuff was scientifically shown to do 3 things significantly better than any other formula tested. So it does do a better job first with the symptoms, the cramps, headaches, muscle fatigue, lightheadedness, dizziness, etc. But it was also shown to protect the body from overheating, both in times of intense exertion and in high heat settings. And then the real kicker, which I think you probably saw, Hillary, it was shown to increase endurance by over 20% more than any other formula. So huge differences. It has been on the market for 10 years. We do have a wide range of endurance athletes, cyclists, runners, triathletes, ultra runners, adventure racers, etc. But we also have a wide range of high schools, colleges, pro teams, and even Olympic athletes that are all using it, both for training as well as for competition. And we even have first responders, firefighters, military, etc., that are all using it. And that's kind of it in a snapshot. But the other thing is the NASA clinicals also showed that it's an amazing aid for fighting off the negative effects of jet lag and altitude sickness too.
That's interesting. So when talking about, I want to actually get into that a little bit more. And I also want to get into non-athletes. Can non-athletes use this product? A mother is walking around Disney. Disney's a lot. and it's hot.
So generally speaking, the right stuff is really more for what we call the committed athletes, the serious athletes. So in other words, if you're doing a 45-minute Pilates class, you probably don't need it. You're training for a 10K or a half marathon, that's a different story. But that said, when you say the non-athletes, I'll say this diplomatically, it doesn't have to be, it's for anybody that's involved in challenging situations, whether it's high heat or high endurance. That could be a hiker going on a three-hour hike. It could be a golfer playing 5 hours of golf in the baking sun in the middle of the summer. So it doesn't have to be an Ironman triathlete or a pro football player or that kind of thing.
So talk to us a little bit about the benefits, other benefits for the endurance athlete. You know, why is it so different? I know that it was developed by NASA, but what is it that takes it to that next level for endurance athletes?
Okay, well, there's several key components to it. The first is that the formula doesn't contain any sugar, and the reason is that NASA found that the sugar can slow down what's called the gastric emptying, which means getting it out of the stomach into the GI, which means it slows down getting it into the bloodstream. So the right stuff does not use any sugar. In addition, forgive me for getting a little technical, but when you pour, let me back up. The right stuff is a liquid concentrate. It's a pre-measured packet. You put it in 16 ounces of water. The NASA clinicals, it's good for prehydration, during, and rebalancing. But to go back to the question at hand, when you put the pouch contents in 16 ounces of water, it has the exact same what's called osmolarity, which is basically the concentration of the liquid is the same as the blood. So it goes extremely rapidly out of the stomach, into the GI, into the bloodstream. Now, when you start digging down a little bit into the formula, let's talk a little bit about the experience of the endurance athlete. So specifically, let's talk about sweat rate. Most athletes, competitors, know their order of magnitude of sweat rate. And typically that's between 1 and 3 liters of sweat per hour. What a lot of athletes may not be aware of is that in that sweat is typically 1.5 to 3.5 grams of total electrolytes that are lost. But over 90% of those electrolytes are sodium and chloride or salt, which is why when you finish your ride or your run, you end up with the crunchy face and the white shirt. The challenge is that most sports drinks and hydration products typically only deliver about 1 to 500 milligrams of electrolytes. So even if you double and triple up, you can be at a deficit. Plus, many of them contain sugar. And as you probably all have experienced yourself, especially in the summer, when you're drinking a lot of sports drinks, you can get that GI upset. Another key to the formula is it uses something called sodium citrate, which actually does 2 things. First, it is a GI buffer, so the thousands and thousands of athletes that are using it don't suffer from those stomach upset kinds of things. But in addition, and again, forgive me for getting a little technical, but sodium citrate, when it's absorbed into the bloodstream, it's utilized by the liver in what's called the glycogen conversion process, or if you've had any biochem classes, the Krebs cycle. As a byproduct, the right stores the acidity of the blood, which means that it facilitates faster throughput and conversion of lactate or lactic acid buildup, which is why it's as valuable for the power athlete as it is for the endurance athlete.
So can you explain to us how it works? You showed us the packet. How many do you need for, say, a marathon or a triathlon? Do you measure it by hour? How does that work?
So wonderful question. And the short answer is less than comfortable, which is it depends. So I don't want to misrepresent that it's one simple user protocol for everybody. You know, what's your sweat rate? Where are you in your training cycle? How much of a challenge is this specific race? Those are all factors that go in. Now, with that said, technically, based on the NASA clinicals, one serving is designed for 70 minutes at 70% VO2 max, which translates in English of a little over an hour, easier just to remember an hour, of high intensity but not blinding intensity work. So going out and riding your bike for an hour hard, hour and a half hard would be one serving. But I go back to the other point that I made, which is it depends. So giving you a typical type of protocol, let's say you're going for a 3-hour bike ride. And again, the NASA clinicals, the studies for the product is good for pre-hydration, during, and rebalancing. So let's say you're going for a 3-hour bike ride. Half an hour, 45 minutes before, drink a bottle with the right stuff. The first hour, you're drinking plain water, and it's as much to fight the dry mouth as anything else. You come back the second hour, and then you do another bottle with the right stuff. And then starting with the third hour, it's really listen to your biofeedback. How are you feeling? Are you clear-headed? Are your legs in great shape? Are you feeling strong on your wattage? Plain water, you're good. It's a hot day. You're doing a lot of climbing. It's the front end of a brick. You might need another one. Or let's say you finish the 3-hour bike ride and you've just had one before and one halfway through. Now, how do you feel when you get off the bike? Are you feeling crampy? Are you feeling sluggish? You might need another one on the back end. So that's sort of an emblematic type of protocol for using the right stuff.
Cool. So before we go any further, I just have to say that I am so appreciative of our sponsors and must take the time out to thank them. Please support our sponsors and tell them that you heard about them on Hillary Topper On Air. Special thanks to the Russo Law Group, the Profit Express with Tim Healy, Pop International Galleries in Soho, the Donna Drake Show, and Fortuna Fine Jewelry. So now back to you, David. We're talking about proper hydration for athletes. And it's interesting what you said before with, when to take it. Now, how do you use the right stuff in conjunction with, say, a gel? They say that you should be taking in at least 100 calories an hour, right? So how do you use it in conjunction with that?
So there's two pieces to that. The first is, and I neglected to mention it earlier, the NASA research found that in terms of the other electrolytes, potassium, magnesium, manganese, calcium, etc., that you're actually better off getting it from the whole food diet. Now, obviously, I'm not talking about an Ironman distance. You're going to need to get some of that stuff in. But if you're doing a 2 to 3 hour workout kind of thing, basically think of it the way, as I like to say, that your grandmother told you, eat a banana, eat a potato. That's a better way to get potassium into your system. So that's that piece. Now, I lost your question. I'm sorry.
Just about taking gels.
Oh, the other product. Yes,
yeah.
The other macronutrients. So again, if you're trying to optimize the timing, you're actually better off separating when you get your carbs and when you get your electrolytes, but by about 20 to 30 minutes to allow for the gastric emptying. But that's the ideal. That's the optimal. That's the perfect world situation. What many of the athletes are doing, for example, if you're going on a 5-hour bike ride and you've got a Camelback and you put the right stuff in there, they'll throw another carb-containing product in there with it. Yes, it's not optimal, but at the end of the day, it's more about compliance and getting what you need. So if you're drinking a bottle of the right stuff, are you better off not eating a protein bar concurrently? Yes, but it's not a big deal. You can sip on the right stuff and get your protein or carb bar concurrently, or ideally separately.
So you say that the right stuff is really about performance and not about taste. I mean, you emphasize that a lot. I personally found it to be pretty good. I liked it. I thought it was clean. I had no issues with the taste, but can you address that in terms of performance versus taste?
Sure. Part of the reason that we talk about it that way is to manage expectations. And I go back to the numbers I was talking about before. The typical performance sports drink hydration product typically delivers about 1 to 500 milligrams of electrolytes. So that's sort of your baseline from a taste standpoint. The right stuff delivers over 4 grams of total electrolytes, 1,780 milligrams of sodium alone. Therefore, what we find is that most athletes describe the first time they try it as, I've never tasted anything like it before. It's startling, not necessarily in a good or bad way, but it's definitely different. And to your point, Hillary, a good percentage of the athletes, once they've used it for a couple of days, actually do like the taste of it. But it is different. And that's why I'd rather under-promise and over-deliver.
I totally hear you. All right. So just, do you have any good testimonials that you could offer? Some case studies?
Sure. I'll give you a couple of age groupers. So the name won't mean anything, but Ironman triathlete Bob competed 2 years in a row in Quasi, the Ironman up on the Connecticut-Massachusetts border. And his PR was 14 hours. So truly age grouper, still impressive that he completed it, but that's, pretty challenging. So then he found the right stuff and trained for the summer with the right stuff. And that September, when he did Quasi, he did it in 12 and a half hours. He knocked an hour and a half off of his PR.
That's crazy. That's awesome.
Okay, I'll give you another. Michelle, age grouper, mother of 4, half marathon. She was setting a goal for the year that she wanted to do it, and she wanted to knock 8 minutes off of her PR. We had the conversation. She got the samples. We always recommend, even though we don't expect anything, we always recommend that an athlete train with the right stuff before using it race day. You never know. I mean, we don't expect anything, but you wouldn't want to do that risk. Well, of course, she took it as a sign. She got her samples on Friday and the race was Saturday. And on Monday, she calls back and says, I've got good news and I got bad news. I said, okay, so what's the good news? The good news is I already exceeded my goal in my April race. I knocked 10 minutes off. I was trying to knock 8 minutes off. I said, what's the bad news? Bad news is I have to set a new goal. It's April.
I love it. That's great.
Now, those are just a couple of
those are great. Those are great. Those are great. Thank you. So let me ask you, if someone goes out and gets the right stuff, could they call you or someone on your staff to kind of walk them through the process?
Absolutely. They can do that. 2 other very valuable sources of information for you is clearly we have our website, which is www.therightstuff-usa.com. But the other thing that we're building up is, and again, you can access it from our website, but if you prefer, we do have a YouTube channel, which is The Right Stuff NASA Drink, all one word. And we've got a host of experts, everything from endurance athletes to sports dietitians to strength and conditioning coaches, et cetera, from a wide variety of institutions that are sharing how they're using it with their athletes. And again, from everything from pro teams to colleges, and like I said, endurance athletes, et cetera. So you can look at those. These are typically 2 to 3 minute videos, quick guidance.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. This was great, very informative.
And I'm sorry, let me just, they can also contact us either at the our website. You can send a link in, or you can just call us at area code 720-684-6584.
Okay, great. And we'll also put that on our blog post and episode posts, so you guys will catch that if you didn't catch the numbers right away. I also want to thank our sponsors, the Russo Law Group, the Profit Express, Pop International Galleries, the Donna Drake Show, and Fortuna Fine Jewelry. And last but not least, I want to thank you, our listeners, for tuning in each week. I really appreciate it. If you want more information on this show or any other show, visit our website at HillaryTopperOnAir.com, or you can find us on Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, even Amazon Alexa. We're out there. You can find us. Have a great week, and we'll see you next time.